Bitcoin is globally portable, censorship resistant, self-custodial money. At least if you have the option to self-custody it. And even compared to other cryptocurrencies, it's the biggest, most liquid, most secure one. So if you want to send $1 billion, overseas, Bitcoin is the one that can handle that kind of volume. And then there's network effects associated with that. The bigger it is, the more liquid it is, the more secure it becomes, which then makes people want to own it even more. And so price is an important indicator of adoption. It doesn't matter what happens on a 1, 2, 3 year basis, but certainly over, say, rolling 4-year periods, you want to see higher highs and higher lows in Bitcoin because that shows that adoption is happening.
According to Lyn Alden, Bitcoin is a globally portable, censorship-resistant, self-custodial money that has the potential to become one of the biggest monetary systems in the world. She believes that Bitcoin's liquidity, security, and network effects make it an attractive option for individuals and institutions looking to transfer large sums of money across borders. She measures the health of the Bitcoin network by its price, liquidity, and network effects, including the growth of global hubs where Bitcoin enthusiasts are building communities and companies. She believes that as these hubs grow, Bitcoin will become a multi-trillion-dollar network bigger than any individual stock.
Price is an important indicator of adoption. It doesn't matter what happens on a 1, 2, 3 year basis, but certainly over, say, rolling 4-year periods, you want to see higher highs and higher lows in Bitcoin because that shows that adoption is happening. And like you said, volatility is important because what you want when an asset is small is you want upside volatility. You can't go from Bitcoin currently is worth about $1 trillion market cap, a little bit above that. And it went from 0 to $1 trillion in, something like the first 12 years it hit $1 trillion, then it was in a bear market. Now it's back to $1 trillion. You can't get that without upside volatility. And with upside volatility comes leverage and comes over-enthusement for a period of time. And that's what creates periods of downside volatility. So it can't get to whatever its total addressable market is without both directions of volatility. Now, once Bitcoin gets closer to whatever its total addressable market is, so for example, you think, what percentage of your liquid net worth do you want in a portable, like a globally portable, self-custodial, peer-to-peer money, like the best one? Probably a pretty significant percentage of like a liquid net worth. And right now, very small percentage of people even own any. The people that own some usually have a small percentage. And so I think it's still climbing in terms of its total adoption. I think eventually it's a multi-trillion-dollar network. I think it'll be bigger than any individual stock. And so until it's at that kind of higher mature phase, I think the volatility is going to be present. And as far as the overall Bitcoin, kind of the health of the Bitcoin network, one of the biggest ways I measure it, one is price and liquidity, but also it's kind of the network effect of the people involved. So all the different hubs that pop up. One of the first ones was Bitcoin Beach in El Salvador, and they eventually inspired the whole nation to kind of adopt it, or at least at the president level, and kind of slowly put it out to the rest of the country. Then we've seen, for example, Bitcoin Jungle in Costa Rica, Bitcoin Ikasi in South Africa. There's all these different hubs popping up, and we're in a hub right now, which is Bitcoin Atlantis. It's a good name because you're in an island, Madeira,
I love it,
in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. But what happened was a few years ago, a bunch of Bitcoin enthusiasts really kind of focused on this jurisdiction and said, let's create a little bit of a Bitcoin density here. That's what we're seeing play out now. That now, compared to a few years ago, from people that have been here during that time, a lot more merchants accept it. A lot more people hold it than they did a few years ago. And that's what you see in these different little hubs around the world. And so I think that as these hubs grow, that's healthy for the Bitcoin network. You don't want all the Bitcoins to be in one big BlackRock ETF. You want to see the Bitcoins kind of spread around to all these different jurisdictions, all these different countries. The thing that kind of makes me most optimistic is when I go to these conferences. I was talking to a woman from Saudi Arabia. I was talking to a man from Bolivia, another man from Colombia. There's a whole group from Bulgaria, someone from Australia, someone from Malaysia, a bunch of people, of course, from the US and every part of Europe, many people from Africa, people from the Middle East, and just everyone's here kind of in the same sort of shared vision. And then a lot of them go back and they're building stuff at home. They're building communities, they're building companies. And that's part of the network effect. That's part of what makes it eventually get up there as being one of the biggest monetary systems in the world.
Lyn Alden asserts that there are numerous myths about energy among individuals. Alden knows about the energy system's inefficiencies because he works as an electrical engineer. She stressed that energy cannot be completely transferred cheaply from one location to another and is not fungible. Energy can be lost more during long-distance transportation than during production. Alden pointed out that the grid continuously balances supply and demand, which can be difficult because of variations in demand during the day and the seasons. Alden stressed that squandered energy is any excess energy that is not utilized, and that this squandered energy is orders of magnitude greater than the energy consumption of the entire Bitcoin network. Let's go back to the interview and watch more clips to gain insights from Lyn Alden.
People have a lot of misconceptions around energy, and it's I guess I pay extra attention to it because my background is electrical engineering. So I'm kind of aware of some of the inefficiencies, but basically energy is not fully fungible. If you produce energy somewhere, you can't just teleport it costlessly to somewhere else. And if you transport it too far, it kind of takes up more energy than it took to produce it. So for example, electricity, you can only transport it, several hundred miles or kilometers before eventually the cost of transporting it are too much. And so energy, and also the grid has to constantly balance. So there's fluctuating demand throughout the day and throughout the seasons, and there's fluctuating supply. And that delta has to be either used in some way or it's wasted. So there's literally, orders of magnitude more than the size of the Bitcoin network's energy usage is wasted by grids and by other things every day. For example, the World Bank found that natural gas flaring. So when you drill oil, you get oil out, and if you get a little bit of gas with it, it's not enough gas to build a pipeline or to take the gas. It's just not economic if you're only getting a little bit. So what do? They just burn it. They just light good energy on fire.
And creates pollution as well.
Yeah, it creates pollution. And there's nothing else they can do with it. Now, what Bitcoin miners can do is that if you put Bitcoin miners on site, you can run that natural gas through a generator and power the Bitcoin miners and at least pay yourself a couple cents a kilowatt for that spare energy, and running it through that converts the methane to carbon dioxide more efficiently than burning it. And so it's actually less greenhouse impactful, and you make money from it. And yet World Bank shows that the amount of natural gas flared worldwide per year in terms of energy wasted is something like 8 times the size of Bitcoin's energy consumption.
Wow.
Just that. But then there's also, there's unused hydro. There's tons of unused hydroelectricity that they just, they build this gigantic hydro dam, and it takes time for people to move to that area, or maybe people are not moving to that area. It's just unused power. When China built out a lot of their hydro, that was happening. It happens in Canada. It happens in parts of like northern Norway, for example. There's just unused hydro. And what Bitcoin does, Bitcoin is, unlike a data center, Bitcoin can deal with low bandwidth and low uptime. It can go out to remote regions and just be wherever the energy is. So it's got that kind of flexible aspect to it. And electricity is by far the biggest cost of Bitcoin mining. There's obviously a little bit of hardware costs, there's a little bit of personnel costs, but by far the biggest piece is electricity. So they can go into any region and say, look, we just want your lowest electricity price. And we'll, if you need this to shut off for 2 hours a day, or you need to shut off whenever there's a demand spike or a supply cut, like we'll be the first to cut off because we have the flexibility to do that as long as we price in the lowest electricity when it's available. And so basically what it does is it fills in all the little nooks and crannies and inefficiencies in the system. And, in one given cycle, maybe too many Bitcoin miners go to some place and people complain, oh, look, all these Bitcoin miners. But those, if they stay in a place where there's not energy abundance, then it hurts their cost and they are less competitive than their peers. And so Bitcoin miners will disperse, and they have been dispersing to all the little pockets around where there's unused power. My favorite example is Gridless. There's a company in Gridless in Africa called Gridless, and especially in like the East African region, they go out to like untapped river hydro, and they build little mini hydro dams on little rivers, river hydro, and they mine Bitcoin with it. And in developing countries, there's been a chicken and the egg problem with energy infrastructure. It's really costly to build new power generation and transmission.